What will you have for July 29th? He warned in one of his sick and threatening letters to the press and to the police. Sam's a thirsty lad, and he won't let me stop killing until he's had his full of blood.
Good evening and welcome to MetroFocus. I'm Jenna Flanagan. In August 1977, killer David Berkowitz, otherwise known as the Son of Sam, was captured after a murderous 13-month killing spree that claimed the lives of 5 young women and 1 man and wounded 7 throughout the streets of New York City. The killer had a taste for young women with long brown hair parked in lovers' lanes, and his calling card was a .44 caliber Bulldog revolver. Tonight, we'll hear from some of the players who were closest to this case, from a victim who survived a bullet to the head, to the police who caught the killer, and the media who kept us on the edge of our seats. Jack Ford had the chance to speak with award-winning journalist Geraldo Rivera, who was the first to obtain letters from prison penned by the murderer himself, and asked him about the impact that these killings had on the city's psyche.
I think you first have to start with what New York City was in 1977. It was a dystopian kind of Gotham City. There was graffiti everywhere, filth. The heroin epidemic was in full bloom. The city was being depopulated. It was totally dysfunctional. That was the summer when the lights went out. Lightning strike, I think it was, took all the lights out. It was, if you were in a midtown fancy hotel, they lit candles and it was a party. I think there was a big pregnancy boom, a lot of babies being born 9 months from that blackout. But I happened to be in the city with my friend Cheech from Cheech Marin. And I said, ABC has just assigned me to go and cover the looting that's going on outside of Manhattan. So we went up to the South Bronx. I dragged Cheech and my ABC News crew up there. There were looters everywhere. The South Bronx, like Central Brooklyn, a lot of the poorer neighborhoods were absolutely being ravaged by the looters. Day came and the city was wrecked, and I think that our confidence was also destroyed. So we were very much in the middle of the Son of Sam killings. We were very much dealing with a dysfunctional city government. Abe Beame was the mayor. The cops had, they were absolutely overwhelmed by the crime, the rampant crime, and in the midst of it, you have this assassin or assassins going around, murdering these young women and their consorts, murdering or wounding, and it became a story of New York terrorized. I think, Jack, that was the nadir, that was the low point in New York's modern history.
You are a reporter who, during this time, early in your career, how did you view this story?
Well, first of all, it was the first in the New York experience, the first time there was ever an interactive murderer, serial murderer. He would boast, he would interact with Jimmy Breslin, the terrific reporter, others, mainly Breslin, but Pete Hamill, others got a piece of that action. He would taunt the cops, taunt the victims, ramble on about, the Son of Sam. So I was a young reporter, so I just graduated. I was an eyewitness newsman first. Then I had my first national program, Good Night America. Then Roone Arledge, the creator of ABC News and Sports as we know it, recruited me to be a national newsman. And this was really my first big national story. Barbara Walters was the first anointed the first female anchor, and she was kind of cheering me on. A friend of mine, for all these decades. But it's impossible to understate how terrorized New York was. Lots of people were canceling social engagements. They were staying home. They were living in fear. Their children were not allowed to walk to school or walk home. The lovers' lanes were being abandoned by young people, even in that hot, humid, sticky, dysfunctional summer. It really was a city under siege in every way, and it was like the Joker in Batman taunting everybody.
As you know, during that time, there were suggestions being made, and oftentimes the media becomes the target of criticism, but there were suggestions being made that the media was fanning the flames of hysteria here. Was that an accurate criticism, do you think?
Well, that's always the beef, that the story is, the reporting of the story is leading the story. I don't really put much emotional investment in that debate. There was no doubt, but that the media was obsessed with the story. But the reason was the audience, the news consumers, were obsessed with the story. The tabloids, the Post, and the Daily News, their circulation shot up by the hundreds of thousands. Local news became another obsession. People following every wrinkle, every development, and whenever there was yet another murder, I mean, it is impossible to overstate how people felt. I mean, if you were the parents of teenagers, or if you were a kid yourself, your whole life was now circumscribed. You walked, you tried to walk from street light to street light, always with the buddy system. It was there was no trust at all of the cops, certainly not of the mayor and the city government. They seemed unable to protect the citizens. And the media, yes, the media was playing the story up huge with banner headlines. But my goodness, if ever there was a story that deserved them, I think it was the Son of Sam, Jack.
Why do you think, last question for you here, and you as I said, you covered this story from the beginning, you got access to these letters penned by David Berkowitz coming out of the prison. Here we are all these years later. Why do you think there's still such a fascination with David Berkowitz himself and what he did?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, the day before Berkowitz was caught was the lowest point in New York City history in the modern era. The day he was caught, there was a tremendous sigh, a release. We embraced the cops again. We felt civilization had prevailed. And then, a couple of months later, the Yankees won the World Series, as I recall. Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, hitting 5-8 home runs, I forget how many, as the Yankees won the 1977 World Series. So the city recovered. Ed Koch soon became the mayor. How am I doing? The city hit dead, rock bottom, and then bounced back. In terms of the fascination, was he a lone assassin? Was he part of a satanic cult? There were so many other wrinkles the story took as revisionist historians took over. But it is vividly implanted in my heart and my soul as a native-born New Yorker. It is something that is part and parcel of the very fabric of the city at the center of the universe itself.
Well, it was a fascinating time for so many reasons. And Geraldo, it's always good to talk to you. We appreciate you spending some time with us and sharing some of your recollections. You be well.
Okay, you too, buddy.